everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Carolyn Talks. I'm your host, Carolyn Hines, film critic and journalist, and this is the podcast slash YouTube channel where I speak to film creatives around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today I'm very happy to be joined by writer and director Liliana Torres to talk about her film, Mamifera, which I think is a film that not just for women to watch, is for everyone to watch, because it talks about reproductive rights, but with regards to the right to make the decision of becoming a reproducer as someone giving birth, but also the way how society informs us about being a mother, about should we have children to like just for the sole purpose of looking after us? Is it wrong to want to be alone as you get older? And all of these fears the character of Lola is dealing with when she has a sudden unplanned pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And I love the way you discuss the idea of pregnancy and also I think motherhood and friendship. And I really want to talk about the relationship that Lola has with her friends. But so my first question, so like this film is the third basically in a trilogy of films that you've done before. And they're films like that are very like personal to you because they reflect about personal experiences you've had and the people that are in your life. So for instance, your first film, I guess you could say in this series, was talking about you returning home to Spain, to Catalina from Mexico. And it's about like being reintroduced to the people in your lives and like the lives that they've led versus the life that you led while you were away. And the second film you did was What Happened, and is about the relationships that you had in the past with men, and in discovering basically that some relationships are good in memory and then some relationships are bad in memory. Like, everything is like different in hindsight. While you're in the situation, it feels good or it feels bad, but then looking back, you said, you know what, that was an experience that I had and it helped make me into who I am today. Mm-hmm. And in this third film is talking about the decision to not have children, and then how that affects the relationships you have with the people in your life. So talk to me first about making 3 films about very, very distinct stories, but also very personal stories to you.
For me, it's something that comes naturally when I write. Really, my ideas and my concerns are coming from my guts, and this is how it comes naturally to me. It's not that I sit in a sofa and I think, what is good to write about, no? But whenever it comes from a familiar place, a natural place, and then I observe, how is this going to be related with other people? Is this important to be told? And this is how a little bit I decide if I really want to go pursuing that movie to be done or not. No, for me also I felt very much that I was like translating to the audience a personal experience, but I really think my personal experience is not very different from your personal experience or from another woman's personal experience, mostly in the Western countries, of course. Mm-hmm. No. So I always felt myself like I was having a conversation, with people through my own experiences in cinema, and that we all can be a little bit reflected on them. So this is pretty much what I try to do when I choose a subject. And of course, I very much related to a woman's life, because my movies, even if I really project them to all audiences, not just women, I really want to underline that. I think they are very much under a point of view of a woman, no? Of course, you have like family, partnership, and then motherhood or not motherhood, no? And even my next movie is about menopause and climate change, no? So for me, these are important themes to bring on the screen. And for me, it's also important to tell them from a reality point of view, from inside my own experiences and my friends' experiences and my colleague women around me.
Right, you're centering the stories in reality, and though they may be fictional in the fact that they're based on fictional characters, but they are based on reality, not just the reality, but the reality of people around you, and reality any woman or anyone in their lives can relate to and see. And I think that's important because the thing with this film is that, like, I don't want to use the term, but I'll use the term preaching. It's not preaching about telling women don't have children, like it's saying like this is just someone's life, this is just someone's experience, and this is what's happening in her life, and this is her perspective on not having children. And I thought the interesting thing with Lola is that she doesn't have to explain why she doesn't want children to anyone. It's just understood, like it's understood by Brunner, her partner, like he knows, she doesn't have to explain, oh, why she doesn't want to keep the baby. He knows, And for her friends, there is only one thing where she is afraid. I think she's afraid to mention, and that's because one of her friends is going through IVF treatments. And she doesn't want to mention this because she understands that her friend is in a very delicate position, not only emotionally, but physically, because the hormones that you take, it messes with your body and it makes the body very fragile. So she's very physically fragile in that. But like it wasn't that she was afraid that her friend would judge her. I got the sense that she was just afraid of causing her stress, because she knew of the vulnerability of that. And like the scenes with her mom knows who her daughter is, and then all of the friends. So talk to me first about that, because I think the most important thing about this film is that you're not preaching to the audience. You don't have a message. You're just telling a story about this situation. You're just telling a story about this woman and about the people in her lives.
For me, that was a standing point from the beginning. I really don't, for me, it's not a battle between women, of one model of women versus another woman of women, motherhood versus non-motherhood. It's not about that. It's about the system traditionally tried to fit us into models that they serve the system, the super good, perfect mother, ever calm, like, or ever there, without freedom at all, just to be a mother, or versus like the lonely woman who will remain, just living with 14 cats and it's grumpy and just don't like kids. These are models that are really inoculated to us from the system, because women as individuals and as subject of thinking of how we want to our lives and our reproductive rights to be, we are kind of threatening to the system. Okay, so for me, it was not a battle between us, but just like pointing the finger, like it's outside that is telling us what to do with our reproductive rights and with our choices, and we don't really have to follow that. No. So this is in related to what you said about preaching. So it was not like to say this option is better than the other ones. It was like, no, it's like, why do they have to tell us or to throw onto us and our bodies these old models of life, right. No? And the fact that Lola doesn't say verbally at any moment in the movie that she's pregnant, no, I made that because of different reasons. First one, you said one, no, for example, you have to take care of your friends when they are going in a situation as Judith goes, but also because for the society, even if we in Europe we have protected the right to decide over our reproduction rights, it is still a taboo in society. In terms that you don't go there, or you don't just go to a meeting and say, "I'm having an abortion in 2 days." Okay, so that is pretty much not happening, and it's still very judged. So when she goes out from the hospital with Bruno, if you remember, she just asked to Bruno, "What are we going to do?" And he says, like, "What?" She said, like, "These 3 days." I mean, people when it's going to have an abortion, they hide. So that was pretty much the point. She's all the time almost saying it, but at the same time, she's like, "Am I going to be judged? Is this going to be, making an uncomfortable situation for a friend next to me? What is going to be happening if I say no?"
Yeah, and I think the thing that really stands out that I was really thinking about is how, as you just said it, like if like mentioning having an abortion or the going for an abortion is taboo, and it made me think of how when women become pregnant, they're expected to tell people because it's a happy occasion, like, "Oh my God, we're pregnant," and all that kind of stuff. And then I was also thinking, but it's also very cultural, because in like Eastern cultures, in like East Asia and Southeast Asia, they don't believe in telling anyone they're pregnant past until it's like the end of the first trimester, because it could be kind of seen as almost like it, because it is a delicate time, like, there's the possibility of perhaps like having a miscarriage or losing the baby is high. So they don't believe in telling people, but then there's also some superstitious reasons, and this is in the Caribbean where I'm from as well, and in Africa, where like there's very superstitious beliefs where you don't tell people past a certain time, so like in case they have any bad thoughts, it won't affect the pregnancy or the mother. And then I was just thinking, like, all of that is to protect the mother and the baby while she's pregnant. But there's nothing that would, for women that don't want to have children, where it says that, okay, like if she's pregnant, like if she was to announce it and say like I'm pregnant, but the family, the friends know she doesn't want to have kids, there's nothing that's culturally instinctive to say that's okay, you know. There's nothing that there's nothing that in the culture to protect the women and to care for them after they have an abortion, you know. Like if you have an abortion, you're supposed to kind of like sequester yourself and like be holed up and be emotional, but there isn't really anyone there in like cultural sense to say, oh,
Yeah.
like, you know, we'll come and take care of you, you know.
Yeah.
And the film, and I think your film kind of like turns it on his head, where the same way how she was there for the friend that you know that was going through the IVF treatments, like when she does have the abortion, her friends are there for her. And I thought that was a very important thing to show, because we saw her cry for two reasons: cry from fear, and then I think cry from relief. So talk
Mhm.
about that, about making the film basically not just about the right to not want to be a mother, but also about having people that genuinely love and understand your decision not to have children and support that and fully support that without complete judgment. Because there's no judgment, not even from Bruno, you know, like even when he decides that he does realize, oh wait, I do want children, there's no judgment from him to Lola, you know, like he fully accepts, and he doesn't kind of pressure her to keep the baby just because he realizes he wants a child, because he realized I want a child, but it can't happen with her. But there's like no judgment from anyone. So talk to me about that for a bit.
Yeah. Walking back to the example you just put about the how people then in Spain is the same, by the way, you know, they don't tell they are pregnant until the third semester, because of course a lot of my miscarriages happened that during that time. But I think they also friends of mine and around me, they don't tell they are pregnant also because if they have a miscarriage, they will probably hide it. They won't be explaining around. You know. So in fact it comes again to the same point, no? It's like, what makes us so bad as a woman if we have a miscarriage, voluntary or not, you know? It's about these old stereotypes we still have on top of us and make us this way, you know. And going back to Lola, for me it was a challenge, like, because I really wanted to make the audience feel the pressure she has and how this external pressure makes her like feel bad inside of her. Okay, she questioned herself, but I didn't want to use anyone as a specific bad or evil person just pointing the right thing, you know, the finger to her, because I thought that would be simplifying the subject, you know. It would be just one against another, and then, you know, the level of the conversation would just be in a more flat position.
Right.
So how I explain that the whole environment in which we live, it's pronatalistic, no? And it's through our own natural behaviors or cultural behaviors around the subject. So it's not that you point and say it's wrong or good, but it's how I do react, as you said, no? When you tell me you are pregnant, or when you're trying to get pregnant, or if you become childless, not, you know, by not because you choose it, but just because you can't, how all this is treated by our culture. No, if you feel pity, you are supportive, but no one cares about the one that doesn't want to have children, or they don't even ask about how she's feeling. If they, you know, I have never had this conversation with my friends. How was I feeling without having children when the time they all have little babies around me? No. And this is, for example, the joke she makes when she goes back home after the dinner with the friends. No, she says to Bruno, "Okay, I will have to buy a reborn, so they will talk to me." No, so that was the point of all of it. You know, I didn't want it to use a character for that. I just wanted to use the real pressure around the subject.
Right. And the thing is that the way society subliminally pressures women into having children is like for instance, one of the examples you use in the film is like she's walking down, it looks like a subway terminal to me, and there's these posters that are talking. It doesn't say directly, but it's inferring like, if you don't get a child, who's gonna look after you when you get old, you know? And then it's like this, she sees the old lady who's look almost dressed exactly like her with the same cart and everything, sitting down and feeding the birds. And culture, and it's so ironic that it's just like, and this I think is a part of just patriarchy and misogyny in general
Yeah.
globally, where it's like a woman alone, like feed, like you mentioned it earlier, like feeding her 15 cats or like feeding birds or whatever, is someone to be pitied rather than to just see, you know, just like, oh, she's just like living her life. Like, you don't know if she's like perfectly content sitting there feeding these birds. Like, you know, you don't know like what kind of day she had and she needed this, maybe this moment of calmness, or she just loves birds. But society has told us that if we see a woman like this, we should pity her, you know, whereas they don't say that with men. You just like the minute it's a man, you just say, oh, he's had a hard like life working, like this is his time to relax, he's enjoying his retirement. But if it's a woman and she's by herself, she's to be pitied, you know. And like, you don't know if that woman has like a full life with hobbies and doing traveling or whatever, but if you see her alone, we pity her. And like, that's one, those are some of the ways that society tells us to have children. But then another way that society tells women to have children, and you kind of like hint at it in the film, is where, like for Lola, I love that she's friends with all of her friends with kids. She loves the kids. She genuinely loves kids. She loves looking after them. Like her sister has 2 kids and they're rambunctious and whatever. And like, she does lose her patience with them, but that's because it like one of them like was interfering with the dog, and she's like Cleo's off limits or whatever. And there are people that, and society has said, if you see a woman acting like this, is because she doesn't like kids and she can't be trusted. If a woman doesn't like kids, she can't be trusted. And then if she doesn't want kids, it's like, what's wrong with you? Like, you know, our job is supposed to continue, like continue the species. But I'm like, but there's millions of other peoples there to do the exact same thing, you know? And like, you kind of show that, you show that she loves kids, but she just doesn't want kids. She knows kids just aren't right for her. So I think that was a really important thing you did. Like, you showed the side that society tells us of what to fear or pity about women, but you also show like, yeah, she's a woman who doesn't want kids, but look, she loves kids just as much, you know. She doesn't mind looking after kids. She doesn't mind being around her friends' kids, and she doesn't judge her friends for that either.
Exactly. That was very important. I really wanted to tear down the stereotype, you know. We have watched in movies, read in books, you know, and cartoons, wherever, you know, they all lonely lady, grumpy, you know. We are used to when you say you're child free, no. For me, it was very important that Lola she had to be a nurturing person, like with her friends, with Bruno, but also she has a blind dog, you know, which is a lot of responsibility, because it's not just a regular dog, you know. She has a lot of plans. She take care of her needs when they come, no, in a very loving way too, you know. So for me, that wasn't the core of the character, because I really wanted to tear down the stereotype, you know, because we are not like that. We just can be nurturing and loving and everything. It's just like, you don't want to have children, and that decision is as you know, visceral as having, you know, and it's as radical as having, you know. It's not something you can change. And of course you can have opinion, but when you're super sure as Lola, it's something very rooted inside you.
Yeah. And like, I'll share something personal, because I've written about it before, so like, there for anyone to read that and who wants to read it, because it's published, is like, I physically can't have kids because I had fibroids and I had endometriosis. So because of that, after like months of deliberation, and then it was a very quick decision. I had to get a hysterectomy. So like, and I remember like people were just like, but what about like kids and that kind of stuff, and I'm like, I'm thinking about my quality of life, you know, because I'm like, for my quality of life, for my physical, literally my physical and my mental well-being, I have to have this hysterectomy. And there were people that were like, but like, are you going to be fine? Because right now I'm 40, but I had the surgery when it was in like early, when it was like 38. Time is mean nothing yet, because it's 2024. So I had the surgery in at the end of 2021. And I felt so much relief from that, because, and I did grieve for the fact that, because I had always wanted kids, I did grieve for the fact I won't ever have any physical children of mine. But even from the time I was a teenager, I had always decided, even if I could have children biologically, I always wanted to adopt. So that made the decision easier for me. And even before I had the hysterectomy in 2015, I had to have a myomectomy. So that was to remove some fibroids I had. And I remember when I went for my post-surgery, my post-surgery checkup, the doctor, the one of the first things the surgeon said to me is like, if you really want, if like one of the things to really help with fibroids is if you get pregnant. And I'm like, first of all, like, are you going to provide the man? And then like, if I get the child, are you going to help me financially? I looked at him and I said, I'm like, are you going to help me financially look after the kids? And I'm like, but like people say those things so easily because they think that having children completes us, as women, like being a family means that you can't just be a woman and a man or two partners together. You must have a child,
Yes.
to be a family. And like for even that was in 2015, and even like years after, while I was still suffering with the endometriosis and the fibroids, people were still talking to me about getting pregnant and stuff. I'm like, I physically can't be like bothering with that because I'm like, I have to be physically able to look after a child. And people are saying, but you can still get married. I'm like, but are you going to be there to help me look after the child? And like this is something that a lot of women go through, and something a lot of women have to deal with, where people aren't really thinking about us as people, but they're looking at us as a vessel. And like they think of the child even in an abstract term, because they're not thinking about the financial toll of looking after a child. They're not thinking about the physical toll of looking after a child, the psychological toll. They're not thinking about, like, once you have a child, that's it. Like you can't, like you have to look after this child, but people just, have a baby. But they're also not thinking about like how destructive being pregnant is on women. And that's something that bothers me about films. And like your film, like I think your film in a way talks about that, because it's not discussed in the dialogue, but like the sequences where she's having these nightmares, where she's in like the art that we see, the art that Lola creates, like you can see that she's worried about the physical ramifications of having a child and like how that could be destructive to her body. But people aren't concerned about that, like giving birth is a dangerous task. There's a Chinese proverb that says like the time of delivery is like a woman is like at death's door. Like I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's not exactly. But it's like to see, it's like the general consensus of the proverb, like giving birth, being in the process of giving birth, it places a woman at death's door. She's a step away from death, and it's just like, but people don't think about that when they encourage women to get pregnant. They don't think about that. But you in the film are showing like Lola's thinking about this. She's thinking about all the things that come with pregnancy, how it can destroy your body and how it can physically harm you, and like the concerns about not even being able to lactate. She has a crying baby, but she doesn't have any milk to give to it. So I want you to really talk to me about using the art sequences to really get into that discussion and the things that Lola can't say physically because she can't really talk to anyone about it, but she in her psyche is really thinking about all of these ramifications that come with pregnancy.
Yes. Yes, as many feminists have said before me, like many times the government and the states and people around us think about women as like capitalist providers. It's like we are also providers, no? So I think in many ways, like remaining child-free for the system is very threatening, because it's like, okay, you have there a wild woman without children, and what it's going to do with her life, it's under suspect, no? If we don't dedicate our time to bearing children, so we have to look after that woman, no? Because maybe she's going to do something supposed not for a woman. I don't know, no? But going back to the dreams, for me, very important. I am very much attached to my dreams too in real life, because I think they provide a lot of information of what you're going through at every moment. It's like a real life thermometer for us. No? Tell me what you're dreaming now, and I can tell you a little bit how you are feeling today. And for Lola, as she could not verbally share, like in an open discussion, that she's getting an abortion and how she's feeling, dreams really serve as, to deliver all that emotional information that it's talking about her inner fears and how she feels. And using the collage was a very playful way that allow us to can take like the fears from reality and put them in dreams and recontext that fear so you can potentially it, no? So it was a very useful way to tell her inner story.
Yeah, I think it really was, because it's like, because her art is the way she expresses herself to when she can't speak. And like, you begin one of the ways the way you introduce her into the film, apart from like the scene in the shower, is she's teaching a class, because she's an art professor, and she's teaching a class about one of her collages. And I thought it was really interesting, like, and this is one of the details that I really love that you put into the film, where in this lecture she's talking about the Diana, the god who's the goddess of health, but also the goddess of fertility and birth in Greek mythology. And she's talking about how she had to be able, she had to visualize seeing Diana, you know, where she had to, instead of placing her behind like these images that she uses for her collage, she had to bring her from the behind and made her the forefront of the art piece, you know, like she can't be in the shadows. So I thought it was a really interesting way to symbolically show how how Lola thinks about womanhood, you know, how she thinks about women in general, and how she sees that women in society have been shadowed. She's like, in my art, I'm going to have to show women coming forward. You know, I'm going to have to show women in front of the world instead of the world behind, instead of the world in front of women. And then like, so that kind of tells you where she's at the beginning. And then throughout the film, when like she's the 3 days she has to contemplate the pregnancy and like going through the abortion, something she does that I think is interesting, where it shows that she does for just maybe a brief minute consider pregnancy and going through with it, is like she's making a collage, and she takes a cutout image of a pregnant belly and puts it and overlays it on an image of herself. And it shows that she does consider it, you know, she's like thinking about it, you know, she stands in the mirror and looks at her stomach. But to me, the part where she takes the image of the pregnant belly and puts it over her own image, to me that spoke more about her psyche at that point than her even looking in the mirror, because like her art is her identity, and her heart is how she relates to the world. So talk to me about that part, because I thought that scene, it was a very short and brief scene, but that's where you really, if you pay attention, you realize that that's where Lola is almost possibly considering pregnancy and thinking, is this a path that I can take?
Yes, because there's two reasons here. First, like even if you're super sure of your decision, it's very conscious, you know, literally it's a lot of pressure around. So at some point they just, you know, this pressure will like break a little bit down into and make you think like, gosh, am I really, you know, it's like should I reconsider that for real? You know, it really makes you doubt in the end. So that seems make that like a little leak, you know, that has gone inside here. But I also think like for me, remaining child-free is not a dogma. You know, it's not something, it was made on my head and standard like an identity and a dogma, and I'm not gonna review it. No, I really wanted this to make a natural and thoughtful and felt decision every time I go through it in my life. No, so it's not a dogma. So I want to review it every once in a while. Think I'm still good with this. Yes, I feel fine. I really like my life. I don't want to change it. I don't want to, you know. So that has to do a little bit with that too. You know, I didn't want to present her like a dogmatic person, like fanatic of something, an idea, no, but just a real person. You know, you can be sure of your decision, and as much you're even more sure of that if you question that decision and say, no, it's okay, yes, I'm sure, no, let's go again, no. So that was a little bit about that.
Yeah, because she's curious, you know, she's curious about what being a mother would be like for her, because she does ask the different people in her life. She asked one of her friends who has kids, I'm a single mom, and she's like, is motherhood what you thought it would be, you know, and like, are you happy being a single mother? And then she even goes to her own mom and she asked her mom about it, you know, and her mom, and again, like, this is where I think all of the characters are super honest and forthright in the film, where her mom says, yeah, if I didn't have you and your sister, I could have become a travel agent, not a travel agent,
designer and travel.
Interior designer, right? She was like, I would have an interior designer. She had a whole plan, you know, I'd be an interior designer. I wouldn't have an office. I'd just be going around to different houses and I'd have a team. and like it shows her mom taught about this. She's like, I envisioned an entire life and a career where you two girls aren't included, where you two girls don't exist. And just for a minute, like Lola, like any child would pause and say, but wait, does that mean that you regret having us? Like, did I ruin your, she like, did I ruin my mother's life? Oh my God, like what did I do? But and it's a perfectly natural response, but her mom immediately tells her, no, but I love you guys more than anything, and it shows that it's okay to regret something that you don't have, it's okay to miss something, to miss an opportunity, and that's a part of life, whether it could be an entire career because you had kids, or it could be like you even have the career that you want, but then it ends up like 20 years on the road, like I could have been doing something else, and like that's a part of life. We all have regrets and we all have things that we miss. You can miss something that you don't have, but that doesn't mean that you don't appreciate and love what you do have, and I think for Lola that really reinforces it for her that it's okay for me to think about possibly having a kid, but it is also okay for me to say, to let that moment pass, not dwell on it, because if she, for instance, had held on to it and looked at it as a fantasy rather than reality, like it wouldn't be good for her or the baby at the end of the day, because like you don't want to have a child and resent it, and I think that's another thing that the film really does show, is like how it's important for people, if you have kids, to make sure that you're not going to resent them, to like, and because there's so many people that do that because they feel forced into the decision and that they don't have any other choice. And I think, and it shows, because she can financially do it, but she's like, I don't, just because I have the finances to do it doesn't mean I should, and I thought that was one of the other important things that you really hint in that you really get at in the film, with the dialogue in particular, especially the dialogue between her mom and her friend.
Yeah, that was for me, this is a brave topic to talk, like mothers that regret or resent or just have some longings of what could have happened, and I think we have to be able to talk about that. Not that doesn't mean that you don't love your child. It just means that sometimes it gets hard, and sometimes you would just like have a separate life, and sometimes maybe you even regret, but you still love them, of course, and it's so difficult for moms that they cannot say that freely, because they are pointed like bad moms, or as they were guilty of a crime just for saying that. I don't know, no, society, it's so taboo around that, and I don't know why is this again, no, this image government and religion has put onto moms, they have to be sacred, perfect all the time, like they were robots, not moms, for real. Sometimes like they were a robot, not a mom. They don't have feelings, they don't regret, they are not tired, they just, I don't know. So I think we as women have to be pushing that on the public sphere, like, oh, it's okay, we are persons, stop mystifying that type of thing, because it just hurts real people to not get that standards,
Right. And it tells you you're supposed to love the sacrifices. Like sometimes you are happy to make a sacrifice, but like you're not gonna appreciate it all the time, especially if you don't have anyone else there to support you. Like, the sacrifice is more difficult if there's no one supporting you, and if there's no one saying it's okay, So there's that. But then so talk to me about in casting Maria and Unrick. Tell me about the casting process for them, and the discussions you have with them about the film and about their journey that Bruno and Lola would take, because Lola and Bruno have a very interesting journey. Like, you start the film straight out the bat with a very intimate sequence where they're having sex in the shower, and I thought that was, at first I was like, where is she going with this? But then it's to show you how intimate they are, how loving they are. Like, they genuinely love and respect each other, and they have a really comfortable and intimacy with them. And that really comes in, and like that really comes in handy in the end sequence in the last third of the film with them. And like you kind of do like a 180 from that, where you show the intimacy and the closeness with them in a completely different way, like this intimacy has a different meaning now. But we'll talk about that, because I actually love the ending of the film juxtaposed with the beginning. But talk about casting them and like the process of like the discussions you have with them, in particular about Bruno and Lola's relationship.
Yes. Okay, that was we have some rehearsal time before the movie, so we did talk about all the subjects during reading the script and everything. No, Lola, Maria is a mother, and Enrique is a father too. So for me, I think the most theoretically important thing was like to explain Maria that deciding to remain child free was not just something theoretical; it's just something you can really feel. And I think she had to tell about where she takes like the inspiration, you know, to performance that. But I think she a lot of the time makes the similarity like it's like having children, like, it's like wanting to have children, you know. For her, it came from the same place, like just choosing the other path, you know.
Yeah.
The security you feel, the rightness you feel inside you, everything comes from the same place for her. So I think she used that to perform Lola, no? We also talked a lot about Lola's humor because for me it has to be like ironic, you know, and picky and all this stuff. And for the rest, we just rehearsal. She's wonderful, I have to say. It's very both very easy to work with them, very playful. So it was a pleasure. And with Enrique, we kind of make a backstage story. You know, it's like, okay, they have been together for a long time now, and they have already discussed, no, the thing like, are we going to be parents or not?
Yeah.
And as Lola was always so sure, he was always like getting well with that idea in a theoretical way. Okay, so for Lola, the decision was really rooted inside her, like theoretically felt, you know, she was really related in that way to the decision, no? But for Bruno, it was just something mental. So when it comes to real life and a real possibility, that is where he really starts to think in a way that is also emotional,
Mm-hmm.
with the fact that he could maybe be a father. And that is where he starts to start feeling different. No, you can see like when she wakes up in the morning and she just decides to take care of her niece, you know, and he's like very suspicious about it, but he's suspicious in a way that you can tell he likes the idea.
Mm.
No? And then he shows up by surprise, like just to help there, you know, and and there you can see how both relate with children and also um, you know, how both enjoy the time together in a different way. But he gets like, you know, more and more uh, happy or suspiciously happy when he find the revistas,
The baby magazine,
the
yeah.
Navy magazine is like, oh, what is this?
He's like,
You
oh, she's
know,
thinking about it.
oh, she's thinking about it. Because he's thinking about it. Then he starts thinking about it too, no? And he likes to spend time with Lola.
Mm.
And you can tell that, no? He likes to spend time with Lola and with Denise. And so this is becoming real inside of him. Like, what if we could be happy with that too, you know? For
Mm-hmm.
him, I can be happy with that too. So this is how he started changing, you know? And we also wanted to keep it very in a healthy way. Like we never wanted to break the healthy couple, so we I decided to keep that tone for them, that relationship, very nurturing, very caring until the end. For me, that was very important, not to take the drama out from that intimacy aspect and just like make two characters like very rooted, very simple, without toxic relationship, no, and they can support each other until the end, you know.
Yeah, they genuinely love and care for each other, and most importantly, respect each other's decisions. You know, like when she realizes that he's changed his ideas about fatherhood, she doesn't judge him for that. You know, she's like, okay, like she's like, you, this is a point you are at in your life, and that's okay. You know, and she's like, and I accept that. And the same thing with him when he realizes, okay, where she thought that, okay, you know what, possibly you're thinking about it, but then he realizes, okay, no, she's like completely made up her mind. He's just like, okay, this is it, you know. And like they don't, they, I don't think that they break up in the typical sense, more than just like just drift apart.
Yeah.
And it's very quick drifting, it's it's not like a painful long separation, they're just like, you know what, this chapter has ended, let's flip the page, and let's keep the respect alive in a relationship, so because that way if they look back they don't feel any regret, because the time has come and this is just the way it is. And because they're both very intelligent, but also I guess in emotionally intelligent adults, like they're able to embrace that for what it is, and I think that's to me the most beautiful part of the film, because I'll say like straight up, if this was an American film, there would have been like a really nasty fight. And I don't mean like it's kind of a trope in like Western films and American films in particular, where like a story like this, you would have this big noisy nasty fight where the characters would say like really horrible things to each other, and even if they come to like some really kind of resolution at the end, there's like bitterness and resentment there. But like I love that for this film you didn't do that. You're like, no, you're like, these situations that don't have to end in bitterness, they don't have to end in anger, they don't have to end in resentment. And that happens if you have people who really love each other, who genuinely respect each other above all things, And I like that. I like there's like no really big arguments in this film.
No, and for me it was very educational also, no, it's like, hey, we can relate to each other that way. We don't even have to have that epic fights for whatever, or just like to some point of your life you love someone and then next day you just hate it. Like how that could be possible, and for me it was also an educational statement, like, no, we can have relationships, like, and I want to show that, and yes, for me that was important. I wanted to say something else, I just slipped my mind. Well, I won't remember.
It happens to me all the time. But I kind of want to like connect the ending to the film. So you mentioned at the beginning the film that you're making next, and it's like you have this your filmography is like taking like women through an entire journey of like a woman's life. You can kind of look at Lola as being a represented in like your first two films, and the next film is kind of going to be like her, even if you don't like cast the same actress or have like Lola, is going to be like basically the same woman like going through menopause. And like the thing is like I love just the way you end the film with like the quiet intimacy of like the first of how you opened it. You're like, you ended the film the way you began it, with intimacy and love and respect, and most importantly with Lola being cared for. She's being looked after, and especially for women, especially going through things like menopause. Again, like society doesn't really look kindly on women experiencing menopause, even though like women have been experiencing menopause from the beginning of mankind. Like we still get judged for hot flashes. People still mock it. They even like having periods. Like even when we're from teenagers up through adulthood, women are still taught to be shamed about having periods. Like if you go into like in Barbados, where I'm from, like I remember when I was going shopping for pads the first time, and it was something that I still do subconsciously, like you kind of hide that you're shopping for pads,
yes,
and
yes.
It's
embarrassing,
right? Like to be embarrassed about buying pads, and like we would put them in, like you would have like the regular white grocery bags, whatever, but they put the pads either in paper bags or like a black or dark color plastic bag, and like, that teaches us to subconsciously be embarrassed and ashamed about a natural bodily function. And it's ironic because without getting periods we can't get pregnant, but and like society, they tell us go get pregnant, but why are you shaming us for the very physiological function that helps us to become pregnant? But then when that ends, the ability to have children ends,
well, your waist,
and then like your menopause again, that's something you're supposed to hide again. Like, so I kind of want us to end off our conversation like with that. Like you don't have to spoil the entire film, like I know you're in the process, but just like connecting like just Lola and the idea of not being able to have children, rather through personal choice, or just being physically unable to, because once you experience menopause you can't physically have children. But again, this is still something that women are looked down upon, and like, you know, like shunned and even mocked by, you know, like people still mock us like for going through menopause and like telling women like, oh, like no one needs to know if you're having hot flashes, you know, like the emotional toll that comes with that. Again, when you have pregnancies, your emotions are all over the place because our hormones are unbalanced. You know, we have like menstrual
We women are
depression, all these
hormones.
things.
We are just hormone with legs, man.
They're just a pile of hormones, right? But again, like these things are still like we're still not allowed to just be vulnerable in them. You know, we're not taught to be cherished within having like menopause. You know, like I would love in your next film like to have another sequence where like the person that's experienced menopause is cared for and looked after, because I don't recall seeing anything like that in any film or TV show I've ever watched, ever, where a woman's experiencing menopause and she's being cherished and looked after.
Yes, me neither. No, I really want to reivindicate menopause. First, because I just went through a premature menopause. So imagine, I wasn't even thinking about that yet. And that's happening to me. And I was thinking like, probably you have experienced a lot of this, having an hysterectomy. I don't know if you have like the substitute hormone therapy, no? Because you were very young.
Yeah. No, I don't have to get hormone therapy because I still have my ovaries, but
Okay.
I do get like blood tests to make sure my hormones are balanced,
Exactly.
because I have multiple sclerosis as well.
Wow.
So like that messes with my hormones, but also like I get like with multiple sclerosis, like my body temperature isn't normal, right? So like I could be having heat flashes and I wouldn't know that it has anything to do with menopause because I'm like, oh, this is just MS. So like that's
Okay.
something I also monitor as well. So yeah,
Well, you had a lot to
yeah, I got a lot going on.
Yes. No, then, you know, there is all these symptoms that you don't know as a woman, that will happen to you. You know, first I was thinking I was having like anxiety, panic attacks or something. You know, the first flashes I had was like, I'm having a panic attack or what, no? So I had no references. I had talked with anyone about that. You know, anyone around me was having that. So I had to read a lot about it. Doctors were like, just telling me nothing. Oh yeah, you have menopause. Okay, so just, you know, go home, deal with the symptoms, take some pills to sleep. Like, oh, perfect. You know.
What is that? How does that supposed to help me?
Yeah. So I really thought, man, I have to write about this because there's a fucking whole world inside us going through, and it really makes you vulnerable by day because you have a lot of rage inside during menopause. I don't know if you experience that, but I do. And I have to contain myself to not kill people around me sometimes. And it's really physical. It's like, oh my God, what is happening to me? And also because you have a lot of symptoms that really makes your life worse. You know, during a period like the mental fog, being unable to sleep, you know, and not anyone talks about that. And you know, women over 60, the population that gets that takes suicide as a way out more often in statistics. It has something to do. I'm sure it has something to do with that. So I really wanted to talk about that, to put that on the Sfera, and I really wanted to make a strong character of that, not just, you know, something you want to feel pity about that. So I'm in the process on doing it, but yes, I will relate it to climate change somehow. Already have the idea, and I think it would get something powerful from that.
Yeah, connecting it to climate change actually makes sense because like the planet is getting hotter.
It's a menopause.
You know, and it's becoming unpredictable. I'm in Toronto, it's March, and outside it's sunny and it's hot. It's like summer temperatures. It's like 18 degrees, like which is like it was 18 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like 30 some, which is almost like 30, which is 20 something degrees Celsius. And it's like that's summer weather and it's March. So yes, like it would be connected to climate change, because if the earth is getting hotter, how much more miserable are women going through menopause going to be?
And it's when it's hotter, when you have menopause, man, it's getting hard to survive to that.
Yeah, no, so I can see the connection. I'll be looking forward to that as well, because I'm like I love that you're taking, like you're making these films the entire journey of a woman's life, or the journey of womanhood, basically, you know, like through relationships and friendships and like growth and the characters. And like I really love Lola as a character. Like I like that she's unapologetic. you know, and that she's loved for being unapologetic, and that she's cherished for being unapologetic, and that she at the end gets looked after instead of her going to look after people.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, no, thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining me and for the film. And also, one thing I did want to ask you about the dog, because I have my dog, but I was like, I want to ask her about the dog. So like I was wondering, is Cleo like your dog, or like was that a trained dog for the film?
My dog is the dog you saw in my previous film.
Oh, so that's your actual
That's
dog.
my real dog.
So who I was curious about Cleo, because I'm like, she's like,
Cleo,
and I didn't realize she was blind at first.
She's blind, yes, and she was blind because she passed away this January.
Oh no!
She had, yeah. We were also sorry. We dedicated the movie to her in the credits because yes, we really love her, and she was not. I mean, we have Blanca, this woman. She's a trainer, but she dedicates her life to rescue hunting dogs.
Yeah, because she's a hound, she's a hunter.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of hunting dogs, they just have like injuries, of course, from many types. She rescued these dogs and trained them to have like at least a regular life, you know. And Cleo, she was having a regular life. I mean, I can tell you. And so we just casting some dogs, and we just reached to Cleo, and that we just love her. And so she just did the movie like we really take care of her. Like she was going to the sets before the shooting alone with Blanca, so she can sniff around freely and get used to the spaces. She was very good at getting used to the spaces like that, you know. And some time she will just hit a place, or you know, but that was once in a while and was naturally even in her life. And I think they're putting music on us.
Yeah. But no, but I really enjoy. I just thought it was like fun because I have my own dog who's also a rescue. So like I just love when films have dogs, and I did like how Maria and Enric interacted with her felt very natural. Like the way like you show her like laying on the sofa and getting pet and hugged and stuff. Like Marie was very affectionate with her, so I was just like, I have to talk to her about this because like I just love when dogs get treated like that on film.
Yeah. And I also the idea of to having a dog that looks real in a movie, you know, because I watch a lot of movies like they have the dog for certain things in the movie, you know, and then the dog disappears half of the movie, and all the time like who's feeding them,
exactly,
you know, who's walking them, or
exactly the same way.
You know, and it's like no, I want to have a real dog in the movie. So that was the reason it appears like that.
Okay, I know you have to go now, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Liliana. This was great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. It was a pleasure.
So everyone, that was another episode of Carolyn Talks, and today I was joined by filmmaker Liliana Torres to talk about her film Mamifera, which I didn't mention in the beginning, but Mamifera is a Spanish word for mammal. So, you know, human beings are mammals. Mammals are also animals that give birth, you know, to live offspring. So I thought it was also an interesting way to name the film as well. But it was great to talk to Liliana, and I love the perspective that she has on femininity and female personhood and female autonomy and identity, and just like ownership over our bodies as women, and over our goals and things we want for ourselves. And I think the film is very important about that, is showing there is nothing wrong or nothing to be ashamed of about a woman deciding that she doesn't want children because she knows it's not right for her. You know, she knows instinctively and inherently, like, I'm just not meant to be a mother. I'm not cut out to be a mother. And like that's to her benefit, and also the benefit of the people in her lives, you know. And I really love the film. And like the first two films, I'm also going to mention them in the description box as well, so look up for that. And if you can watch it. Thank you so much to Liliana for taking the time to talk to me about the film, and I'll link everything about that in the description box below as well. Of course, you can find the video version of this on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@Carolyn_Hinds. That's HINDS. Find all of my published work on my R3 page. That's r3.com/Carolyn Hinds. It's like my digital portfolio where you can find all of my published work there, as well as links to other episodes of the podcast. So Here's What Happened, and even my drama podcast, Beyond the Romance drama podcast, which I haven't done in a while. I'm going to try to start back this year because I kind of do miss it. but I do have to learn to pace myself, because the first year and a half that I did it, I did not pace myself, and I kind of like burnt out. But I've been having a great time talking to filmmakers this year, and I appreciate each and every one of them who takes the time to talk with me, especially on their busy schedule, and just sharing their filmmaking journey with me and their perspectives on the world through the eyes of a filmmaker and a creative and an artist. And for all of my listeners, thank you for taking the time to listen to me and for listening to my podcast. And if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram, that's at CarrieSaneH12. I appreciate it as well. Until the next episode of Carolyn Talks, everyone, stay safe. Bye.